This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Ever wondered how you could turn your side hustle into a full-time gig and spend more time together?
Hi, I'm Vicki, a #1 best-selling author.
And I'm John, a retired Los Angeles police officer. Welcome to Dig the Well, where we help couples navigate the world of business.
We've been married for 35 years, and because we built a successful side business, John retired 9 years earlier than he originally planned from the Los Angeles Police Department after 25 years on the job. Now we spend more time together, and we want to help couples like you do the same.
Join us as we help you overcome common obstacles, and we show you how to make extra income without sacrificing family time.
Ready to dig deep and build your well? Let's get started. Hello, hello, hello. We are back. We're excited to be with you again today. Thanks for tuning in. This is so much fun. And John and Vicki back again. And we thought on this episode that we would really dive into why we picked the name Dig the Well. We've talked about it on previous podcasts a little bit, but never the real backstory. And we find that interesting. So when we're learning about other people on different podcasts, we like to know why they name them the way they do. So we're excited to be here and talk about that.
Yeah, Dig the Well was something Vicki had come up with, and you've been using that for a long time,
since I think 2003-ish, somewhere in there. Yeah. So,
and there's a number of different reasons or different, I guess, definitions for Dig the Well, but there was one in particular, and that's the reason why I think Vicki used it all the time. And that's why we decided to use it for our podcast. And Vic?
Yeah, the main reason was we have always been entrepreneurs. You've heard us talk about that. And it was really when John was a police officer at the Los Angeles Police Department, and we had closed several businesses, and we knew we wanted another one, and we did start another. And really realized it wasn't because we necessarily needed the money right that second, but it was that we wanted to prepare ourselves for the future, where when we did need more money, that the well was already dug, that income source was already there, so we could get the water from it, right? So yeah, we dug the well before we needed the water, is what I have always said. And I know there's, different definitions of it, and it actually came from we did some research, and it came from, I didn't know this, but a Chinese like philosopher, and so I was going to read that. Does that sound cool?
Yeah, for sure.
So the quote, "Don't wait until you're thirsty to dig a well," is attributed to a Chinese philosopher, and I'm going to butcher this. I should have looked up this. You could say
Zhu.
Okay.
I think.
Zhu. And we're big on pronunciation of people's names.
If someone knows it's not right, please let us know in the comments. I don't want to mispronounce this poor guy's name.
We apologize for that, because that's a big deal. So Zhu, and it means to plan for things that may happen in the future. Makes sense. Yeah, it's basically why I started using that term. Yeah, but there's did you see that, in the research that we did, there's other meanings behind it. We thought you'd find that interesting.
Yeah. And if you think about it, if you wait until you're thirsty to start digging your well, you're probably going to die of thirst before you actually find water. And I think if you look at the same concept with, for monetary purposes, if you need money for your family, or you need money for yourself, or some extra money, and that's basically what we're talking here, right? Is having some sort of a side gig, a side hustle that you operate from home. And that's what we coach a lot of couples on. If you wait until you actually need the money, it's probably not going to be enough time for you to start something from home and have it actually be lucrative enough to where it's going to move the needle. Just like anything else, once you get started, it's going to take some time for it to actually blossom into some useful money for you and your family.
Right. Yeah. So some people are like in dire need of $1,000 extra a month. And yes, don't procrastinate any longer. Get started in your side business. But it's so true. You may not earn that 1,000, that week. It might take you a month or 2 months or 3 months to bring it up to speed. But yeah, that's why it's smarter to start a side gig sooner rather than later, for sure.
And that's the thing too that we always coach people with too is we're not talking about get rich quick schemes.
Right.
I guess something like that, a quantum leap kind of a business like that. Sure, you could wait to dig the well when you need the water and do some sort of get rich quick schemes, but generally they're not. How do I put this? I mean, a number of them are not even legal or
Right.
ethical or moral. So we've always been like, hey, let's look at something that's legitimate, which does take work and it's going to take some time. But once you put in some of that work and time and start digging that well, before you know it, you're going to find water and you're going to be better off for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, couple other definitions. Do you want to read the first one besides the Chinese philosopher one?
Are we going to do the spiritual metaphor?
Yeah.
So we found that in Christian context, dig the well can refer to redigging spiritual wells such as time in prayer, worship, or fellowship. It can also mean to dig into God's word and to do so regularly, even when it's difficult.
That is cool. That is cool.
Probably the best time to dig into it is when it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are Christians, and that really hit home. And again, didn't even know when I said, hey, we dug the well before we needed the water, but it absolutely makes sense. And actually, a girlfriend of mine, Yvette Osborne, and Yvette, I know you're probably going to be one of our guests coming up. We discussed you being on here with us, but she often refers to the spiritual side of digging the well. She told me when she heard the name of our podcast. So I thought that was really, really cool.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's also, it's along those same lines, but it's a reference to the Bible for dig the well. In the Bible, Isaac inherited the task of redigging wells that his father Abraham had dug. Isaac faced opposition from the Philistines, but he directed his community to redig the wells anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. And I bet there's some real Bible smarty pants listening to this podcast that know exactly the verse that comes from. Hey, if you get a moment, put it in the comments. We'd love to read that. I consider myself a novice on the Bible, even though I definitely I read it, I've studied it, but I'm still a novice, right?
We all are.
Yeah, it's so profound. And so anyway, but yeah, we would love to hear even more about any references in the Bible. I'd love to hear that. And then
we have one here. It's a symbol of community. A well can represent a thriving community, and digging a well can be a costly and emotional act of faith.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I get that, like way back in time when people were digging wells for their water, you would want to help with a community. That's interesting. Yeah.
Because oftentimes a well is kind of a center of community and they all share in that.
Right. And I just had a thought. One of your very favorite Disney movies, Beauty and the Beast, because it reminded John of Misa so much when she was little. Remember that? The opening scene is her singing and frolicking around that well. How funny.
I didn't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's at the beginning and she's got her cute dress on. And yeah, the whole community, like think about it, they can't live without water. So that makes total sense. So really cool.
Yeah. And digging a well sometimes takes an entire community to do. And that's one of the things too, when we were talking about starting a business and running a business from home, oftentimes you do need somebody to help you through it and help you kind of get started and get on the right path. And so it's not just a one person thing where you're just having to learn everything on your own. It's nice to have someone that can kind of walk you down that path and lock arms with you.
And it goes back to our original business, Prestige Motoring Accessories, where we didn't have a community. We didn't have a mentor at all. And that's why we're so passionate about the type of business we're in. And, we've made no bones about it. You see it all over social media. We're Neora. We're national marketing directors with Neora. But the community that surrounds Neora is second to none, that's for sure. And the quality of people that we attract. And there are mentors built into the system. So that's another reason we're so passionate.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I went on to dig some more on the research. That dig the well means that one should not procrastinate or leave things to the last minute. It also means to be prepared for any situation. Yeah, that's exactly it. Exactly what we've been talking about. And then there's one other, I think, too.
Yes, it also means to prepare for what you need prior to needing it. It's much more difficult to exert the energy to dig a well if you're thirsty while doing so.
Ooh.
So again, looking at it from a home-based business kind of a standpoint, where you want to find another source of income for your family, another stream of income for your household. It might be difficult to do that if you're I don't want to say broke, but if you're in a position where every little penny counts, right? You won't want to invest, or you won't be able, may not even be in a position to invest in a business that you can run from home.
Right. That's why it's smart to find ones that aren't as costly to get started.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it shouldn't, right? It shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg just to get started. A lot of times, and there are a number of different businesses that are out there, which we don't agree with.
Right.
Just because they're front loaded. And so at the front end, they want a huge investment from you. And that's tough, right? Because if for most people, that's why they're looking at a home business, right? Is because they don't have a whole lot of extra cash.
Yeah.
So we do not believe in, and we don't really, like when we coach couples, whether they want to start a Neora business or not, there's so many other businesses they can start. There's so many other things they can do that doesn't require a massive amount of upfront cash to get started.
Right.
Neora is one of those, as well as others.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't get yourself into thousands. I've seen women, there was this leggings company who will remain nameless. And these women were investing, like, John, $5,000 in all different sizes and colors of leggings. That was it.
Wow.
And I remember them telling me, my husband's not too happy about this huge investment I've had to make. And I'm thinking,
You're kidding.
he shouldn't be. And so, yeah, we're big proponents of a low-cost startup business that has products that sell. So you're going to start making money on a commission base right away, but you're not having to inventory all of that.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
You have to fill your garage full of inventory.
Yeah. I don't blame the husbands at all.
And then you came up with you found some organizations that have put the idea of digging a well like this before they need the water. And some of those are what here?
Yeah.
Which ones?
So like Netflix, Netflix is such a big name. And I absolutely remember this, that, when they came out back in the day, we were all going to Blockbuster Video, bringing the kids on a Friday night, picking out the movies that we wanted to watch on VCR tape. And they started that whole Netflix. And I was thinking I knew that meant internet. And they were doing CDs, for those of you that remember, where you could go online, right, and order that CD and have it shipped to you. And then they trusted you to mail it back when you're done watching it. I thought that was the most bizarre thing under the sun, but it worked. And then they slowly morphed into digital, everything being digital when they didn't really need to switch yet. VCRs were kind of on the way out. And then the whole CDs were totally in, right? And they were very successful at that point, but they were smart enough to dig the well, have the vision to know that streaming is coming down the pike and we better jump on that or lead the way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think they started with the mailing of those DVDs back and forth to homes.
Yes, DVDs.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Right. I think they started doing that as kind of a proof of concept that people were willing to look into some other form of media than the VHS tapes. And then they kind of get the market share for when we do make that quantum leap from going from those huge cassette tapes to streaming.
Yeah.
And so people are already customers of Netflix, or at least they know who Netflix is. And that was massive. Look at them now. Look at
Huge.
them today, right?
Yeah. I mean, really. And you know what's sad is Blockbuster did not have the vision and foresight to dig the well in a different area, right? And they got stuck. Look at them today. Right, there's one store left. Have you guys all seen that on actually on Netflix? There's a
Netflix
movie.
did a special on it.
How funny of that one Blockbuster store left. Yeah. Netflix. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and then another one is Tesla.
Yeah.
So like we're really close with Tesla because we've had Teslas. We've had a number of them. And we were kind of early adopters back over 10 years ago. We bought our first one. And I'll tell you, when we bought it, you wouldn't believe how many people said I was crazy. I was wasting my money.
Yeah.
And that this car will be, the company Tesla will be bankrupt within a couple of years. And you're going to be stuck with an expensive car that you won't even be able to get parts for. No one's going to want. You're an idiot for buying this thing. And look at Tesla now. It's a giant. And every auto manufacturer is scrambling to make electric vehicles. Now, whether electric vehicles, you like them or don't like them, I get it, right? Electric vehicles aren't for everyone, but certainly there's a number of people who want electric vehicles and like them. And there's a market for them, and Tesla's proven that. And look at where Tesla's stock has gone. Wouldn't it be nice if you had bought some of Tesla stock in its IPO or even afterwards for the next couple of years, because still people didn't believe in Tesla and their stock was way underpriced for where it's at today.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Again, Elon Musk is kind of a visionary, kind of like a Walt Disney, if you will. And it's been proven it's been the right way to go, but they dug the well. And the other thing too, if you think about it, trying to break into auto manufacturing, how does someone who hasn't built cars before, how are they going to go up against the big auto manufacturers? It's like almost impossible. It's like a David versus Goliath kind of a story. And yet he did, and he's killing them.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we got so excited. Now we got the cyber beast. There is a beast, by the way. Don't put comments there that you mean truck. Well, it is a cyber truck. But John, tell us about the beast since you're so good at that.
So they're going to make 3 versions of the cyber truck. And they're only currently building 2 versions, a dual motor version of the cyber truck and a tri-motor version. And they've called that the cyber beast, because even on the app on the phone from Tesla, it says cyber beast on it. And when you get in the truck, in the jumbotron that's in the dash, when it starts up, it fires up, it says cyber beast, I believe, right?
Yeah,
I think it's the same splash screen as what's on the phone. But anyway, the cyber beast is just a tri-motor truck that is incredibly fast and has some crazy performance to it.
And honestly, that's what I love about it. You know, don't hate on us because we're not using gas motors anymore. Because I actually have a 64.5 Mustang convertible. So you can give me a thumbs up in the comments about that. So we're not that we're against,
Absolutely not.
Yeah. No. Gasoline motor cars. Yeah.
One of the cars that I miss most, it was one of my favorite cars I've ever owned, was a V8 Audi. It was that RS5, and that thing was fast. It looked good and it sounded amazing. Just a naturally aspirated V8. Man, that thing it was awesome. So a Tesla makes no noise, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, that is. I remember we noticed that. And side note, our side hustle, our side business got that truck actually has gotten a lot of the cars for us, right? We've taken that money alongside, John's job, and we got you that Audi.
Yeah,
that was like a big deal. It was on International Day of Happiness too. How funny is that it was delivered for you? It was John's dream car. So so don't hate on us for also driving Teslas. We love everybody, everything.
At the time, actually, my dream car was a Maserati, the Grand.
Which one was it?
It was Gran Turismo, I think, right? Gran Turismo Grand. I don't even remember the name because I've forgotten it, because it's no longer my dream car. It was the coupe.
Yeah.
That had the Ferrari engine in it. And that was kind of my thing. And I really wanted one really bad. And at the time, we couldn't afford it, obviously. And in the meantime, while we were digging our well, while we were building our home-based business and getting it to the point where we could actually afford to buy that car, I've been doing a lot of research, and I found out that they're not as reliable as they probably should be for I think it was $140,000 You would think you'd get a car that would work well for a while.
Right.
But, and it
You
didn't have a
would
lot of,
think.
and there wasn't very much technology built into it, but it's a beautiful car, and another car that sounds great, another naturally aspirated V8. And I still see them every now and then. They're not that common, but when you do see them, I just look at that thing. I think, wow, that is a beautiful car.
Yeah.
And then I remember when Vic said, you know what, our side hustle is doing well enough. Let's go get your car. And during that time when we were building and digging that well, I found out that I really liked the Audi RS5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then he found one in this crazy, amazing color. Sorry, we're getting off topic, but it's kind of fun to dream build, right? You got to dream build. What was that? Suzuka gray?
Suzuka gray,
yeah.
Which is almost white. It's really a light gray, and there's not that many of them built, and it's one of Audi's racing colors. And it was Suzuka gray, and it was all the way out in Westlake. That's over 100 miles from where we live. But they had one. They had the only one. And the other thing about that car was they're really rare. Audi only exported 600 each year to all of North America for only 3 years. So it's rare that you see one on the road. And I remember when I found it there, I located it. I drove out there and I just loved it. He said, "Yeah, we're going to buy it." And then he realized where we lived. And he said, "Well, we'll just flatbed it out to you tomorrow if you like." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So
that was so cool.
Worked half a day.
Yeah, I had to sign for it. You were on the job in LA, and I had to sign for it. Yeah, and then you came home, right, and met me at home with it, right? Yeah, that was so
they
cool.
delivered it at home, and I met them here.
Yeah, but I signed for it out in the LA area.
Yeah, so
anyway,
you were at one of the events for the for International Day Happiness.
Exactly.
And I asked him, "Hey, can you stop by with the vehicle on your way to my house? Because my wife's going to be there."
Yeah.
You hadn't seen it yet.
I hadn't.
So they dropped by. So she actually saw it after we bought it. She actually saw it first.
And there are a bunch of Neora brand partners, and we all celebrated around it and took pictures with, around it. We could dig up those photos. Yeah, that's right. Such a great day, making dreams come true.
We're able to do those things. And maybe cars aren't your thing. Maybe it's something else. Whatever it is, though, by digging the well and making that extra money, and what we did for our side hustle ended up being a lot more lucrative than we thought it was going to be. And so we had all this extra money. We paid off our debt. And then we thought, well, now we can spend money on some fun things that we really didn't think we could ever do, at least not in our lifetimes.
Till we were like 60 or 70 years old, we thought, right?
Yeah, but that's the beauty of having a side gig, having those additional streams of income for your household, because it gives you that extra money. It gives you the options to do other things with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, love that. Awesome. We could talk about that all day long. Can you tell?
I could talk car stuff all day long.
We're car people. We are. It's so funny.
Are there any other companies you wanted to talk about? Because there's a whole bunch here.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch.
It's the same concept.
Yeah, I think we'll move on to one other thing that we almost named the podcast before we kind of close out with information on side gigs. But Find a Way was our original name for the podcast. So this is kind of fun to hear this too, because that is something where when we were looking at starting our business, the current one with Neora, I remember telling John about it and you were all in. You're like, wow, it sounds like what we've been praying for. Like I could say verbatim what John told me. He's like, nobody wants to look their age, men or women. My buddies at work don't want to look their age. The fountain of youth is not going away. And if there's one product that you slap on your face, and I don't think you said slap. Now I'm like,
now you're just making stuff up.
Now I'm throwing that in. But I remember him saying, if it's one step, I'm in. If it's two steps, I'm out. And I remember that, and I thought, wow, well, then we're in. And at the time, money was tight. We had 2 kids in college. So believe me when we say we feel you, we know where a lot of you are at. and money was tight. I had a different business, that candle business I've talked about on a previous podcast. John was still working overtime at the Los Angeles Police Department too. So we're doing all the things, trying to do everything right. And, um, and that's when, honestly, I didn't have the money in the bank to get started. I wanted to buy a little more product. You don't have to, with Neora, but I wanted to have extra product to give to people to try it for a few days because I didn't, I wanted to make sure it worked and all that. So I said to John, I want to do this, but we don't really even have room in our credit card. That's how much college was costing. It was just crazy. But I know a lot of you have been there. And so John looks at me and goes, well, find a way. You want that bigger package of product, find a way. And any women listening out there, when your husband, it's an awesome challenge for me. It was I took it on as a challenge. I love that. And he knows that about me, right? He wasn't saying a bad thing. He was like, well, find a way, Vic. And he kind of walked away. And I'm like, and I just, got all huffy puffy. You don't tell me to find a way. I'm going to find a way. So we realized that. So that's why we kind of wanted to name the podcast Find a Way, because we thought about the kids and how we raise the kids. And it was always trying to teach them to be proactive, to plan, to figure things out, right? Use common sense and find a way. And you could really elaborate on that because you would tell the kids, well, find a way. You would tell all of us, find a way. And I love it.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's kind of a good lesson for life in general, right? You just have to figure out how you're going to navigate through all the issues and all the things that come up in life. And if you can't figure it out, then you're going to be in a bad place. So, and I knew when I said that to Vic, she would find a way, and she did.
Exactly. Is it a military term or is it a police thing? Because I'm trying to think of other people, or do you think
I think it's a philosophy in life?
Yeah,
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just don't sit there and wallow and wish and woulda, coulda, shoulda, and all that. Find a way to make it happen.
Well, I guess the closest thing would be from the Marine Corps would be improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. And honestly, that's how we've lived our lives. That's how we've raised our kids. If you want to do something, maybe that's you right now. You're like kind of sitting there going, I want to start a side business. I just don't either think I have the money or the know-how. You will find a way. You will figure it out if you allow yourself to get started, to make that decision and start.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the first part of it, right? Make a decision.
Yeah.
If you want something different, you want something more, just make a decision and follow it up with some action, and then find good people that will help mentor you and help you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And now I kind of wanted to kind of round out the podcast talking about side gigs in general. So now you know why we created the podcast and named it Dig the Well. We really are passionate about helping singles, couples, have a side business, really have the American dream. It is still alive and well, but we don't believe it's you working for somebody else your whole life. To us, that's just not what the American dream is. It is having your own business. And we know everybody can do that. So we looked up some more statistics on how many Americans have actually, and I'm sure it's globally too, but have looked into having a side business. Or did you want to touch on that, John?
Well, I've read many studies that have it in the somewhere in the 90s, right? Some 90 percent, like some have 90%, 93%, 95%. But what they're talking about is that that many Americans, working age Americans, are considering a side hustle to start over in the next year. So to me, I thought, wow, that's crazy that 9 out of 10 working aged Americans are open to starting a side hustle. I think, I honestly think a lot of it changed after we just went through the pandemic. I think a lot of people realized that, hey, I would rather work from home rather than having to commute somewhere if I could.
Right.
And then other people were really financially hurt by the pandemic, whether they were out of work or had limited work. or whatever reason, where it would have been nice if they had an extra $500 or $1,000 a month on that income stream. And I think they realize that, well, with a side hustle that I'm offered that and I can have that. And then if you think with e-commerce and with the internet and everything that we have at our fingertips, social media, all these things have just really opened the floodgates to having your own home business. I would imagine 50 years ago, it would have been a lot tougher.
Yeah, definitely.
And for those people who did start side businesses 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Good for them.
Yeah. That's awesome that you were able to do that. But I think today it's so much easier. And I think it's really lucrative, more lucrative too now.
Definitely. And so we found this survey from Insuranks, hopefully that's how you pronounce it, found that 50% of those who reported having a side hustle were women, 50%, and 49% were men. Where's the other 1%?
In California. So it's about even.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Yeah.
Because I know some people, I've talked to some guys that said, well, that's not really for me. My wife can do something like that, but that's not really for me. And I don't get that. I don't really understand why.
Yeah.
It's equally for either of us. Right.
Exactly. And over 1,000 part-time and full-time employees were asked a series of questions, including types of side hustles and how many they have and the reasons behind wanting extra cash. And the average, I thought this was kind of interesting, the average monthly income brought in by side hustles were pretty impressive, right? You might think $50, right? But those who surveyed, they dedicated about 13 hours to the side hustle, right, per week. Oh, wait. Yeah. A week, right? Working their side hustle. So honestly, 13 hours, that's a decent amount of time. Men were reported to bring in $596 a month, while women were said to make $378. Don't know what that's all about, but not too shabby.
That was kind of surprising.
Yeah. Not too shabby.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, if you think about it, by having your home-based business, it also opens up some tax advantages for you. And of course, you would need to consult with your tax advisor, your tax preparer, to find out exactly what those are. But having that business you're running from home, because it's a business, should open up a ton of tax deductions that you normally don't have if you're a W-2 employee.
Right. Definitely.
And then you found something here from Side Hustle Nation.
Yeah.
That 39% of working Americans report having a side hustle. So that's almost 4 out of every 10 Americans have some sort of side hustle, which I thought was a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
And that amounts to as many as 80 million people.
Wow.
And here's the really interesting part, that among millennials, it rises to 50%.
Smart millennials.
Yeah.
That is very smart. Yeah.
And of course, I'm like, you and I are right on the edge.
Right.
Like, I'm barely a baby boomer. Like, I'm on
John's
that last year of being a boomer. And Vicky's the first year of being
Gen X.
Gen X.
Don't tell them.
But you look like you're a millennial.
Oh, you're so cute.
But when you look at in the United States, in the overall population of the United States, I said like 39%. Of the different generations, though, only 24% of baby boomers have a side hustle.
Yeah.
Millennials, we already talked about it being 50%. Gen Z is next at 46%. And then you.
Yeah.
At 40.
Yeah.
40%. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So people are getting wise to it, but it's amazing how many people we still talk to that just haven't even looked into it. And that's just shocking to us.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And we've coached some folks in other countries too. We've found that in a lot of other countries, it's way more difficult to start and operate a home-based business. There's a ton of obstacles. So when people say that, they come to America because they want the American dream, yeah, it's still fully alive and well. Because if you lived in another country or pretty much any other country than America, you'd run into a number of obstacles, and it may not be an option for you, because in some countries, it just wasn't going to work. And it's just sad, because we've talked to so many people in these other countries that would love to do what we do, and having a business that they can operate from home, or really from anywhere. Like, we don't have to be home to operate our business. We were in Hawaii last week.
Right. Exactly.
And we can still, as long as we have some sort of tablet, computer, laptop, phone
even. Yeah.
we can still stay connected and still operate our business.
Yeah.
But in other countries, we found that it's just really, really tough.
Yeah. Either it's really true that we were told in a couple of countries that their employers won't let them have a side gig. Well, I feel like that could be true, but it also may not be true. It might be just a fear factor, right? We
Yeah.
don't know for sure. I know, some don't want you to have a side gig, but as long as you're not doing it on company time, I don't see why they should be allowed to dictate what you can do.
Yeah, unfortunately, they probably signed a contract when they
Right.
accepted the job, saying that they
Right.
would not work any other business or
Right.
for any other company. So they're just dedicated to that company. And we found that to be true in a particular country more so
Yeah.
than in any other. That was almost
Right,
everybody said
exactly.
they had to sign something, which is
Right.
really sad.
And I think here in the US too, I talked to a lot of people in the financial services. They can't have a side business, I've been
Really?
told. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. But if that's not you and you're really curious about maybe starting something and would love to get our advice, whether it's with Neora or maybe you just want our advice on something else because of our experience, definitely reach out to us on social media. You can also comment on the podcast on wherever you're listening, but we'll most likely see it and be able to answer you in a direct message on one of the social media platforms because we're on everything. I know I'm the Vicky Downey. John's not on social media a ton, so look me up. But I'm the Vicky Downey on Instagram. I'm Vicky Lund Downey on Facebook. And on Instagram, we even have a Dig the Well podcast page now. So you can actually message us there too on Instagram. So, all right. This has been fun.
Yeah. So now you guys all know why we ran with Dig the Well.
Yeah, exactly. Is it making more sense now? And if you missed some of our previous episodes, definitely go back and listen to those. We have 1 through 5. We kind of talk a lot more about a lot of this that we've already talked about in greater detail. And we're excited about future episodes, having even more guests. There's one coming up with our son. We just had one last week with our daughter. Really, really excited for you guys to hear what it's like growing up in an entrepreneur household from both of them. So you could be giving that legacy to your family. All right. Well, thanks.
Yay.
Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, for sure. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on Dig the Well.
We hope you feel empowered and ready to take on new challenges.
Remember, if we can do it, so can you. Keep learning, keep believing, and going after your dreams.
And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs a little inspiration or maybe a nudge in the right direction.
Help us grow this community of go-getters. Together, we can achieve greatness and get back to family.
Thanks for listening, and let's keep digging the well.